morning, Luc.
Morning. Who is there?
Oh, here we go.
Hi,
Hey.
so I'm late.
No problem. You're probably
Yeah.
1 minute early, actually.
Okay, perfect.
And people are starting to join right now. So
Okay,
we're going
excellent.
to wait 1 or 2 minutes,
Okay.
help introduce each other, and then we'll start in 1 or 2 minutes.
Sure.
Cool. So Luc, Heather, Brett, thank you, you three, to be my host today, or host today, to launch something new. Community AMA, community Ask Me Anything. So for us, it's really an opportunity to gather all the community together and to focus on someone that we want to learn from. And Luc has been one of our best mentor, advisor, someone who just believes so much in our mission that he has been naturally my first guest, my first invite for today. And actually, I still don't understand how you did all you did in your life, Luc. And today, I really want to understand, although it's going to be hard in 1 hour, but we'll do what we can.
All right.
So I will introduce Plato a little bit in 5 minutes, and then I will let Heather and Brett interview, talk, learn, pick the brain of Luc as much as possible. And in the last 10, 15 minutes, we'll take a live question from the audience.
Sounds good.
Cool. So to introduce a little bit Plato and our mission. So today we live in a world where people don't leave failed people don't leave failed companies. People leave failed leaders. People don't leave your company. People leave your managers. And companies who are willing to train their leaders are going to build better products, drive better results, and do whatever it drives to success your company. And company will not be able to train their leaders are going to see high turnover. And this is why we decided to build Plato. And for us, the best, and for 300, 400 of our customers, the best way to learn leadership is actually to learn from other people and from people who have been in your shoes before. And our vision of the world is you have plenty of challenges, but there are plenty of people in the world who experienced those challenges before. And we have an opportunity here to connect people with each other. We have an opportunity here to make sure that the mistake they made are going to help you not make the same ones, actually. So Community AMA is one of the tool that we built in order to learn from experienced engineering and product leaders. It's going to be a series every 2 weeks to start, and we'll increase the frequency if the traction is as amazing as today. We never saw so much sign up for anything we've been doing so far. So I'm really excited today. So it's going to be every 2 weeks. We are going to invite the best engineering and product leaders that we know. We hopefully are. So the next ones are going to be the co-founder and CTO of Datadog. We also are going to have the former CPO of Coursera and VP Product of Netflix. And we hopefully are going to have the CTO of Reddit. I'm talking to him at the moment. So hopefully we are going to have more people we want to learn from. Today it's going to be a small group session, so 3 person, Brett and Heather learning as much as possible from Luc. But so just Plato gives you the opportunity to do that in small groups of 8-10 people every single day, every single week. This is our product. This is what we do, and we call them group sessions. And group sessions help us to have one mentor, 7 and 8 person learning from the mentor about anything related to engineering and product. And hopefully, and we'll let you know about how you can benefit from it. We have a special offer thanks to that is going to be applicable today, and we'll let you know a bit more about this. So now I want to let this stage mic to Heather and Brett, who are going to ask some questions to Luc. The main topic is how to set the right goals for your engineering team. And to introduce Brett and Heather, Brett has been one of the most engaged and foremost mentor in the community. Brett is one also the mentor who consistently every single week receive the best rate and grades from our mentees. He is the one who helped the community grow, and he's engineering manager at Atlassian today, bought by Trello has been bought by Atlassian. He was at Trello and now at Atlassian. And Heather is the CTO of Mode. It's an amazing product that we are using at Plato every single day. They are growing, and Heather has been from director of engineering to now CTO of Mode, and she is still in her journey to learn engineering management, but she also has tons of things to share. So we are so glad to have you in the community. So I will let you, Brett and Heather, take the lead from there, and hopefully everyone will enjoy today and learn as much as possible.
Thanks, Kwong. A little bit of housekeeping because this was new to Heather and I. Is it obvious to the attendees where to ask questions?
I think it's good to it's good to remind this. So if you can do it, Brett, like go for it.
Yeah, down at the bottom of Zoom, there should be a Q&A button. So I can see that there have been 2 questions asked. So at least 2 people have figured that out. But I think that's where everybody can ask questions that we can keep them a little more organized than just being in the chat. So I guess I'll go ahead and start with asking Luc, just so we get a baseline, kind of tell us a little bit about, briefly how you run Lyft and how goals fit into running that.
Well, so first of all, just to set the stage, I don't run Lyft. I run the autonomous team at Lyft, which is a growing piece of the effort. The biggest chunk of this is what we call the Level 5 Engineering Center, which is where we build our own self-driving, technology, and are working hard to, over time deploy it on the Lyft network. So that's something we started a little over 18 months ago, and has grown from essentially nobody at the time when I joined to now over 300 engineers and growing. So it's becoming fairly massive. So the way I think about it. So by the way, I just for context and my background, so been at Lyft for 2 years, and before that I was at Google for 12 years, where I'm known for having, among others, started Street View and taken it from an idea into something quite large for the company. So fun journey, but the opportunity to join Lyft and do something even more fun was just too compelling for me to not do. So that's why I'm here. So when I think about my role now, as a head of a large, team of mostly engineers, but also product managers, technical program managers, and many other functions. There's a few things that are probably the most important things I do. One is to hire people. Right, so to essentially do what we might call talent management. How do you find the best people out there, convince them to join, organize, the team so that you are not doing all the work yourself in hiring, but some of your leaders take that on as well, and sort of over time build the best organization you can. That's the number one. Other thing is just to set the vision for what we do, make sure that not just me but everybody understands why we're here, and then that vision is also communicated to the other leaders at Lyft, the board, and others, so that we all understand, our mission. And the other thing would be to also help set the culture. So what are our operating principles? How do we work together? What sort of how do we think of our goals? How do we collaborate? What sort of systems do we use? how do we communicate with each other? How often do we do reviews? All these principles are how we operate as a team. Together, they are the culture we build. And finally, I think the other, biggest of the 4 buckets of what things I do is to drive, I would say, impact and execution, right? And that, in my view, is where, you require having, really, a well thought out set of goals that you establish and that that you track and you track relentlessly. So that's the way I think about goals. And we'll probably talk more about this in a minute, but I think the process we use is a process that are used by a number of value companies. The OKR process. OKR stands for objectives and key results, and it's a framework that was first established, I think, by VC John Doerr, who in the book that's called "Do You Measure What Matters," and first used at Intel, and then sort of when then Google borrowed the process from Intel and improved it, and now I think a number of different tech companies in the valley are using it as well, or different flavors of it. So that's probably a long-winded answer to your question.
Can you tell us a little more about the differences between OKRs at Google and Lyft?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start by saying a bit more about OKRs, right? And then then talk about the differences, right? So first of all, OKRs is O and KR. So the objectives are typically very they're broad, they are more directional, right? And they give you, so they could be saying like grow usage of this product, that would be an objective, right? But then the key results could be multiple key results that are much more measurable and that sort of are what you'll be tracking and are results that, if achieved, take you closer to the objective, right? So it could be, for example, a key result would be to get to 100 million users, weekly active for a particular product. So it's a very specific, sort of way of measuring and of specifying the key result, right? So I would say the objectives can be also recurring themes, right? Objective would typically stay with you for the long time. Like, for example, if it's to grow the business, well, it's typically something you'll be, sort of doing on an ongoing basis for years, right? And the key results, I think, are probably different every quarter or every year. They are just based on what you think you can achieve in a quarter. The way I think about it, you typically have, and that's true of, sort of Google and Lyft and other companies, you have a small number of objectives. If you have too many, then, nothing is a priority. So I think we typically think about having at any level in the org, something like, 3 to 5 top level objectives. And under each objective, you can have a series of key results that you want to achieve. So again, maybe a handful at most, 3 to 5. And there's many, many benefits. So you asked about the differences now between, Lyft and Google. I think the differences are around expectations of success, right? So I think an OKR, in my view, to be a good OKR, needs to be somewhat aggressive. It's something that you have to stretch yourself to achieve. But people and companies, culture interpret this differently. So at Google, in order to make it very clear that OKR should be aggressive, the overall expectation was that OKR should be, you should aim to meet 70% of your goals, in every quarter. So say your OKRs for the quarter were to, grow your user base by 40 million users, and maybe you achieve, 27 million or whatever. That's, you made, say, 70% of the goal. That's considered good. And the reason to do this is to, again, explicitly state that goals should be aggressive. You push yourself, and it's, expected that because they're aggressive, you will not meet all of them. And also that leads to probably the benefit that people tend to not sandbag. So you don't want, sort of, the incentive structures and the culture to be such that if you miss your objectives, it's catastrophic, right? You maybe for some objectives you want that, but not for all. So by explicitly saying that you are okay with meeting 70% only, then you create this culture where, people, sort of essentially work towards aggressive goals, and sometimes don't meet them. The difference at Lyft, I think, is at least, and that may be evolving, is that goals were typically set again to be met, right? And it speaks to also a company that's, probably, still in earlier, it's earlier in its life cycle than Google, right? Google is a very mature, large company. Lyft is, getting to IPO, so it's large, but still, only 7 years old. So the process are still evolving very more rapidly. And at least in the early years of Lyft, Lyft was, very, very focused, and therefore needed to, have a lot of clarity on what was the most important thing for the company. And there was establishing goals that should be met, right? That was a difference in culture. So Google aiming for 70%, Lyft, goals should be met 100%. And if it's not met, there's a big problem. What now I think we are doing is sort of coming up with a blend of the two approaches. I think we are labeling, some goals are critical. So, for example, if you have a goal to build a particular feature and launch it, on time for a particular event, right? You can't do this 70%. It has to be ready for that event, right? Because the event date, it doesn't move. So some goals are critical and labeled as such, and other goals are explicitly tagged as being stretch goals. And that lets you have a blend of both sort of goals that have to be met, right, and goals that are stretch and where we expect that not all of them will be achieved. That's for context between the two.
So you were talking about your objectives kind of carry over year to year or period to period, and then your KRs are more scoped within that period and should be more definite.
Yep.
We at Atlassian, we also have what we call our big hairy goal.
Yep.
Where it looks more like the KR, but it definitely takes more than one period. So like ours is what was it? We want 100 million users or something. It's like super far above what we're at right now, but it gives us something to shoot to. Is that something that you've done, and how effective do you find that to be?
Yes, I think we do something similar. At Good and Lyft. At Lyft, we think of some goals as being the North Star. So what you're describing is in some ways a North Star. That's where you want to be in a few years. You don't exactly have a timing yet because it's so far away, it's so aggressive that you're marching towards it. So, for example, in the realm of autonomous cars, we have a North Star. Without going to the specific, a North Star to get to scale, to a very large scale with our autonomous cars on the Lyft platform, right? That's what we're marching towards. And then what you establish, sort of the yearly goal you establish should take you closer to that North Star, essentially. So the North Star gives you a framework to think about the most important thing you can do, right? And then since you talked about the kind of the time horizon of goals, say, and that's another difference in fact between Lyft and Google. So Google, the process used to be only quarterly, and then Google introduced also yearly OKRs because it felt like if you only look a quarter ahead, right, you don't it's not enough context to do big things, and so the yearly OKRs gives you more of enough stability for the year, and then you sort of tweak them, refine them every quarter, refine your KR every quarter, right? What we found at Lyft is that just the process of OKRs, I can explain more about how they get established, but it takes work by a lot of people to establish sort of credible OKRs every quarter or every period, and for us we found that things didn't change that much. The top level activities didn't change that much quarter to quarter to warrant a full-blown OKR process. And so we have in the past year moved from like a quarterly period to a 6-month period. So we do yearly planning, and then once in the middle of the year we adjust course and set new KRs towards the rest of the year. So I think it's a good compromise for us. At least it works. Yeah.
How many levels of OKRs do you have? Like, does it go all the way down to the individual level?
So in theory, yes. What I care most about is the OKRs that spans on my entire organization, right? So and even just establishing those takes work, right? But then the OKRs, for example, could be where one objective to improve our autonomy, right? Then a number of key results we're trying to achieve under that umbrella. So these key results themselves, can be to use Brett's terminology, quite hairy sometimes, right? And so and involve also again a large team themselves. So I think you typically go a level deeper, and you have teams sort of establish their own KRs, that contribute to this broader KR. So I would say you typically have 2-3 levels of OKRs in a good well-functioning organization, right? The top level ones, and then I personally love to have them organized in a way that I can drill down and sort of understand the broad ones, but then see for each group, each team, each sub part of the problem, what exactly we're doing in more detail, and track this. So say for my org at the moment, say it's probably you're talking about the top level ones, then the team ones, and then probably some individual ones, and that but I don't check on those very specifically. This is up to the managers themselves to decide how they run their team.
So with these different levels, you ideally want to roll them up into the higher ones.
Yep.
How do you keep enough flexibility in the higher ones that the teams and sometimes the individuals feel like they have enough contribution from themselves that they're not just reiterating the larger goal? Like if you make your KR at the company level too specific, then it's basically like, okay, my individual KR is exactly the same as the company's.
Yeah, no, I think I think it depends. The top level goal should be very broad, right? So let me give you an example, right? So we're building self-driving cars. Self-driving cars, the core, the brain of the system is what you might call the autonomy piece, right? So we have a goal without going to the specifics of the goal. We have a goal this year. So the objective is to improve autonomy, right? And the key results is to improve it by, say, to pick a number, say 100x, right? So then, how, then when you drill down into this, what does that mean to improve this by 100x, right? So first of all, how do you even measure that, and we can go into metrics, in a few minutes, but how do you measure it is one thing. Once you understand and measure it, right, there are many pieces that contribute to this. You need to have, the right sensor to be able to even sort of understand the environment around the vehicle. You need to be able to have the right perception, and understand enough objects and understand, how to, understand traffic lights and navigate them, for example. So there's a bunch of sub goals. Then there's like the plan or the prediction. There's many sub goals around this that themselves can be complex and hairy, right? And have to be specified as well. And I think the challenge is to make sure these goals sort of all work together towards a broader goal, right? So there's a challenge in establishing the goals that are credible and that sort of work across teams, and then a challenge in establishing the right metric and tracking. See all the challenges and that's why the process takes time, right?
So at both Google and Lyft, what is the relationship, if any, between OKRs and performance management?
That's a great question. So I think it's explicitly decoupled, right? And the reason for that is that if you explicitly link a bonus to an OKR being achieved, OKR being achieved, then that leads to bad behaviors. In my view, it leads to sandbagging. So nobody's going to be aggressive if their bonus depends on it, right? So you really want to decouple. Also, things change, right? So you establish a goal, right? And midway through the year or the period, right, that goal becomes obsolete because something changes, company direction changes, some things happen, right? So if you tie again performance and therefore sort of compensation, right, to specific objectives, it leads to bad behaviors, and so it's decoupled, right? And that's the answer. I think in some very special cases at Google, as I know of, I think very special goals were established as incentive goals, but it's outside the OKR process.
So you're talking about sandbagging, and that kind of stuck in my head. I know that if you ask the wrong question or you try to track the wrong thing, it's going to be really easy to do that, to sandbag.
Yeah.
Are there any questions you ask yourself or any tactics you use when you're creating a KR to say, is this sufficiently difficult to sandbag? Or is it?
Yeah, you mean can it be gamed?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks to probably the difficulty of establishing metrics that you believe in, right? And that's, it's an art. And I think, so I think once you have the goal, right, you may not necessarily have, the metric fully fleshed out yet, but I think it's definitely comes quickly next is to establish that metric and something that you trust. And you're absolutely right that the wrong metric, they can be gamed, they can measure the wrong thing, and therefore you could be, make yourself believe you're making progress, but in fact you measure the wrong thing. So it's very challenging. I think the metrics and I think have to also be rich enough. So for example, while companies often have like a goal to say grow their business or grow their user base, right? Even if that's usually a great goal, right? Get more users, fantastic, right? That everybody likes that. But if it is your only goal, it can also lead to, growth at all costs, and you could be, acquiring users you don't really care about, or you could be, leading to, sort of different ways of measuring usage that are, not that useful. For example, you could lead to measuring when some page view happens that your users don't even notice, right? So there's many nuances in how you measure, and I think you shouldn't have just one measurement. I think you should have multiple measurements. I think if you try to roll everything under like one metric, I don't know, like say the consumer price index, for example, well, it can be, you don't even understand the metric anymore, right? It's gameable in many ways, and you don't understand the levers. So I think it's best to have, metrics that track growth, metric that track maybe some feature quality and different dimensions. So a small number, but not just one.
What are the most common ways you see OKRs being pathological, specific to engineering?
I think often I see them being non-measurable. That's the main issue. So they are often about maybe building a component or launching something, and that's just not ideal. But because it's like one discrete event, or so you want things that are more sort of measurable objectively and not just like one thing. That's what I think about them. Yeah, I'm not sure there's much more to say about this one. I think ideally they are tracking, kind of a core performance metric, a core business, indicator that you care about. Yeah.
So on the note of not hitting KRs,
yeah.
How do you make the judgment call between we're just going to bust this KR because we realize it's wrong, versus we're really not doing well at this KR, but it was set right?
Yeah. So I think it comes to tracking, right? So I think once you establish the goals, right, then you establish the metrics that help you track them. I think it's important for the goals to be broadly communicated. I think that one of the key values of OKRs is that they align teams, right? And then they give give everybody a sense of where they fit in an organization, how they contribute. They, tell us what's important. So they help establish the culture as well. So you establish your OKRs, you sort of track them, and you can come with some dashboards, right? And then the idea there is to be able to quickly at a glance sort of see when something is off, right? So in some cases, with the right dashboard, I might check them every day. Now, at this, current stage of Lyft Level 5, it doesn't really make sense to do it every day. But certainly at my staff meeting every week, we start the meeting by glancing at the metrics. We have a dashboard that helps us understand, in theory, very quickly what's happening. And so we look at this, and then we can, in theory, if we see a trend, something like trending below what we expected, then we can start being more focused. So then we dig deeper. We might ask product manager for that particular feature or that area to join us and dig deeper. And if we see that there is a problem, then we can start actually either putting more resources or digging deeper. And in some cases, we encounter some problem of either communication or poor planning or something that happened, and then we in this case we generate what I might call a postmortem. So we try to understand what happened, just like write it down so that we can document it and try to avoid making the mistake again in the future. So now there are some cases where you're right, you might see that you're not tracking and you might decide that you made a mistake and you drop it. Ideally, that doesn't happen very often. But I think you still have to be allowing for these situations. If your process is too rigid, again, if you tie, the objective of the KRs to comp and to various other processes, then it's going to be very difficult to change the goal, even if midway through the quarter you realize that it's the wrong goal. So flexibility is the name of the game here.
So I have a super tactical question. There's a lot to know about OKRs, as evidenced by this conversation. How do you scale the knowledge of OKRs out? How do you train a whole organization to use these well?
Gosh, I think it's you keep talking about it. You have to the things that matter in your org, right? The cultural, the methods, the processes you use, right? You have to they have to be top of mind all the time. So in this particular org, what did we do? Well, I have one particular engineering manager who is very passionate about OKRs. So I asked them to actually come and talk about this in an all-hand forum, right? To say, hey, explain to everybody why OKRs are important and what we do about them and how we go with the process. So, and then you send this over email or you post this on some internal website. So you want to make sure that this is top of mind and that people have different ways of finding out about the thing that matters in the org, not just OKRs, but all things. So that speaks to another topic, which is sort of communication in a large org. But yes, things that matter, you sort of repeat them, and you have multiple ways for people to find out. We also go through, a pretty thorough. So we just did this, in fact, because we typically do this at yearly boundaries, right? So the end of 2018, early 2019. A lot of time is spent in establishing the yearly goals, right? And as part of this, a number of meetings are scheduled with the teams, and so it becomes by definition top of mind for everybody, because they are pulled into different meetings about discussing these goals. So I would say the process that takes order of weeks, say 2 to 4 weeks would be my expectation, just because it takes a lot of time to sort of discuss the broad themes and then sort of have teams internalize the broad themes and decide on how they fit and what they can contribute to these themes, and then that goes back to the top. So you go sort of up and down the organization a few times before you converge onto a set of OKRs everybody can believe in.
So thinking back to one of the first things that you said, you had mentioned vision and goals.
Yep. And
kind of listening to this conversation now, I'm kind of thinking, do you keep vision separate from your OKRs, and then like OKRs build off of that vision, or is your vision largely encompassed by by at least your objectives?
So the vision is sort of meant to be broader, right? And I would say, broadly captures the direction you're going into and the work you'll be doing over a period of years, right? It captures, the overall mission of the organization. So I think that OKRs at any level are more specific, or about what you're going to do about this, like right now, or over the course of the next, period that you're looking at, say next year. Does that answer your question?
And so, like, you're reviewing your OKRs fairly frequently in weekly meetings.
Yep.
But do you review your vision more than just like once a year or twice a year when you're setting OKRs?
The vision, is typically, here to stay, right? So it sticks with you. It's why you formed a particular division or organization, right? So,
okay.
If that changes, it's like you're talking about something major, right? You're changing your overall company direction.
Okay, so you're trying to have the vision permeate your culture, and then your objectives and key results would be more of kind of tacked onto the side to measure it and make sure you're in the right direction.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I also see some questions flying by here. I think one thing we haven't talked about is the fact that all OKRs should typically be public, right? So you want, and they are valuable because they are broadly communicated and publicly published. So you typically want to have, then be discussed at great lengths at say all hand type meetings, and then you want to publish them at a place that everybody knows to access and to look at. You sometimes want to post them in your building, right, on your walls. So you want to make sure they are public, and then that should be true at every level. So there's no reason, even your own personal objectives, if you haven't established, you should publish them. That helps clarify what you do. It helps communicate, the value you bring. So it's a good thing.
In your experience, how strictly should lower level OKRs roll up to higher level OKRs? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think ideally you want, all the OKRs to roll up, but in practice, it's sometimes, difficult for every single OKR, to align to the top goals, right? There's something you need to do, like, to keep the lights on or whatever, the things you do as part of, of your role that aren't captured, by the top OKRs. I would call these sort of table stake type things, so they're still good to capture in your own personal OKRs, because that also helps, your peers and your manager understand, everything you do, and understand that on top of all the OKRs, well, there's this extra attack. So for example, if you, at Google, to name one place, you end up running a bunch of services, live services. You also have, a bunch of, say, pipelines of, data ingestions and then processing that happen. And these pipelines are, and these services are automated, but, there's always something that happens. They require maintenance. Sometimes they have to be, some data center has to be maintained. So you have to move your service to another data center. Some underlying framework to drive your pipeline changes. So the bottom line is that the more services you have, or the more pipelines you use and are responsible for, the more you have a tax on, essentially being able to run all of these. So I would say a large percentage of your team, your engineering organization, ends up being, doing this kind of, more quote unquote maintenance work. And so ideally you capture this in your OKRs, but it's probably not super sexy to capture this at the very top level. So sometimes they only capture this kind of task at the lower level OKRs. I would say my preference would still be to try to capture them at the top as well, if possible. But I realize it's sometimes not possible. Yeah.
Cool.
Heather, do you have any other questions from yourself, or should we move over to the open list of 26 questions?
One super quick one based on that last answer. So should we infer that you believe all actions ideally would be captured by OKRs in some way, or is there some type of work that just doesn't make sense to put in there?
So, ideally, yes, in an ideal world, everything would roll up to the OKRs, but in practice, it's not practical. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go over to these 26 questions.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Okay. So top to bottom is chronologically. Should we just start going through some chronologically then, or?
It's your call, right? I'm not doing the questions. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's at least start there so that we can talk. So on the premise of people leaving managers, not companies, how do you balance the challenge of reports wanting to work on interesting projects that are not in business interest? The manager needs to foster development on their team, but also keep things in line with company goals. So how do you kind of balance those out?
Yeah, it's really challenging. I think you in an org in a team, you always have different kinds of people, right? There are some that are want to work on the cutting edge stuff. Some that are more motivated by sort of impact to the business. Some that maybe are more junior and developing and don't mind working on maybe more mundane things. So I think as a manager, you're probably want to build your team in a way of a good blend of people, right? Such that you can then best apply them to a blend of OKR that are have also different aspects to them, from maintenance things to cutting edge R&D and everything in between. So I think it's something that if you find that there's a big mismatch between the goal you set for a team and the team composition, then you have probably built the wrong team. So.
Cool. Someone asked, is it acceptable to set an OKR that's not measurable when it's announced?
I mean, I don't think it's unacceptable, but it's not ideal, right? And I guess I'd love to get an example of this, of a non-measurable OKRs. I mean, I think some OKRs are, as I said earlier about maybe launching something. So you could argue that's measurable in itself, but it's too binary. So not ideal. So yeah, I would say in my view also any OKR is better than no OKR. So any time you document what you're planning to do and you share it, it's better than not doing it. So the bias is to do this, right?
How cross-functionally do you set OKRs and how are they tracked? Like something between engineering and marketing or maybe engineering and sales?
That's a great question. So, I would say typically what happens is that the product management group is, I would say most involved in sort of establishing the goals, right? And I would say both PMs as well as sort of leadership of the org. And so they are, I would say they start the process, bootstrap it, perhaps provide more of the overall themes. And why that happens is just because they typically have more context. They are the ones sort of that spend more time understanding the environment where you're evolving, right? The competition, the other part of the organization. So they have the context to help establish the broad themes that OKR should fit under. And then you have this exercise of sort of going sort of communicating this, having teams work on their own OKRs and then reporting back and going back and forth. So that process is most heavily driven by product management, right? In partnership with engineering. Once you're in, I would say, state OKRs are established, right? Teams are heads down, hearing you want to track and you want to measure progress. So there, I would say there's the two functions that are key here are, one, analytics. If you have analysts, they are the one that will help you with metrics and dashboards and track things. And then TPMs or technical program managers are absolutely critical in sort of driving the execution in your team. So they are the one that, say, given a broad goal, right, which could be their, anyway, to launch something or grow something, they will be tracking, progress across all the teams involved in this particular goal. They will be looking at the seams between teams. They will be helping understand at any point in time sort of where we are and what are the gaps and reporting back. So they are really the execution machine of your org. That's how different functions fit together typically. And by the way, I'm here talking mostly about OKRs for engineering teams. Often there's other functions that also on goals.
So a few different people have asked about the effect of company size on OKRs. Should you use them differently in different team sizes?
Probably slightly differently. I would say when company is very small, right? It's probably pretty simple to, everybody's like, you're doing one thing, right? You're all sitting in one room, and establishing them will take you just, maybe a few hours, right? You should all very clearly understand what's going on and where you're going. And so, and that can be a pretty, I would say, lightweight process. But still good to document it so that, even your small, team of 5 people all agree that this is the thing that you should be working on. As you grow, the org gets more complex. And so I think the roles of OKR becomes even more critical in just making sure that, that your different, divisions or groups sort of, work together in harmony, right? And so that, you don't diverge, that you communicate well. So they become a key tool for alignment and for communication, right? So yes, so to answer the question, so, I would say even more critical, the larger the organization, the more OKRs matter in my view, the more they are important.
Another one is, how do you introduce OKRs to an org that isn't doing them?
Well, that's a good question. I never had to do that, fortunately. Well, I mean, I think like anything else, if you're a big believer, right, what I would do is you might start by, buying a few books on OKRs and sharing them with your leads, right? And then establish yourself an OKR to start the OKR process at a given point in time. I think it's always good to have, one person who's a champion, right? So if you have that champion in your org, right, you can task them with, writing some documents or presentations about the value, and then establishing a process for your own org. So I think, as a leader, I try to do very few things myself directly. I always like to find a champion, that cares about a particular issue, and then task them with making progress there. So that's the way I would go about it.
Cool. Someone asked, when you set a North Star or big hairy goal, how do you keep people motivated and believing in it rather than saying, oh, that's impossible, I won't even try?
Well, again, that's where the OKRs should help, right? I think the OKRs should be much more achievable, or at least give you, feel more like within reach. Hard to achieve, but not like years away. So that's the way I think about it. You're right that in our, again, our world, right? If you sit down with an engineer and tell them we'll have, 50,000 self-driving cars in Lyft, that's our goal. Let's do this. Nobody would know even where to start, right? So I think that's where the OKRs and the process of trying to break that crazy goal into bite-sized chunks is super important. And in some sense, the OKRs are these bite-sized chunks. They give you this roadmap towards your bigger goal. And I think the farther away the goal and the more, I would say, nebulous or your OKRs, but what you do in the next, there should be no question for any engineer as to what they should be doing for the next 3 to 6 months. They should have like a clear set of goals, right? And again, your challenge as a leader is to make sure all these goals work together, in harmony, right? And take you towards your North Star, right? At some point.
Do you have any OKRs that are related to either engineering innovation or tech debt? And if you do, how do you craft those, the measurable part, the KRs?
Yeah, let's talk about the second one, the tech debt, right? Because in any org that, there's always going to be tech debt, right? In fact, when you move fast and execute quickly towards, goals, you are inevitably creating tech debt in the process. In fact, the way I've come to think that, there's almost impossible to write code that lasts, right? Code should be thought of as transient. So therefore, code you write, you'll have to rewrite at some point. So it's code is by definition tech debt. So I think we, to name a specific example, we have a goal here at level 5 this year. One of our O objectives is to increase velocity, right? And many of the sub goals there are around, what you might call tech debt, but are around looking at anything that gets in the way of productivity and of moving fast. So there are goals around OKRs around build time, for example, how much time it takes to build your code. There are indeed goals around refactoring some pieces of the infra that have become obsolete. So there how do you make it measurable? Well, you might look at, although I hate it to look at lines of code, but it's a way to look at a percentage of your code that's been refactored towards a particular new standard you're trying to aim for. So, and we're looking at again, in the name of velocity, looking at things like availability of vehicle to test. We're looking at the turnaround time between a bug being filed and your and the bug being acted on. So a bunch of things like this metric that do matter. I would say they're not really refactoring per se, but I think refactoring is probably one of these things that you can think of as like a tax on the org, just like I was talking earlier about the Google services and the pipelines, right? Another thing is just good hygiene on your software, and good hygiene means that sometimes you have to refactor. So I'm not sure I'm answering the question, but I think it's an important topic, and I think yes, if it can be captured in your OKR in some way and measurably so, it's a great idea.
Cool. I think that's probably all the time we had for questions. So I'll turn it back over to the folks from Plato.
Okay.
We can do one more question if you have a good one.
There's so many questions.
Oh yeah, we can do one more. Like Luc, you want to pick it?
Yeah, I have time, so go ahead.
Okay, let's take one or two more. Luc.
How about this? Can you go overboard with OKRs, and what does that look like?
So go overboard. I mean, yes, you could. So you could spend all your time planning and no time working. Absolutely. In fact, I think to some extent we were going this direction at Lyft at one point, like a couple of years ago when I was joining, because I think the process had, the process there at the time was that every team, when they were establishing goals, were presenting and discussing the goal with sort of company leadership, right? And so that may be fine when you have 2-3 teams, but then when you have 50 teams, right, that means you have 50 different meetings to review these goals. It becomes kind of a recitation of goals after and it wasn't completely acceptable. So yes, you can go overboard. I think you should probably always look at the process you've used and try to tweak it to your new scale. And I think if you again spend all your time planning and not enough time executing, you've done something wrong. So you should probably try to limit the amount of time that you spend sort of on your OKR process to, I would say, a max of 2 to 3 weeks would be ideal, right? That itself is already a long time.
Exactly. Yes.
One more, or we good?
You can go in more.
There's so many questions I would like to ask you, Luc, but maybe we'll do another one then.
Yeah.
I think we can conclude for today. So thank you very much, Luc. I know you for 2 years now. I'm always very surprised on how much everything you say is very sharp, very concise, very crisp, really clear, but really simple at the end of the day. And that reassures me on, like, most of the time we are doing the things right.
Yep.
And even leaders like you are doing the things that are simple, that are by the book, that are and we know it's working now thanks to you. So that's a great way how I learned a thing or two today, many things, how many levels of OKR, how to make all the OKR build up to the company North Star, how to involve your team, make OKR public, etc., etc. But so many other things I guess we could learn from you. How was it to work with Larry Page and Google, and how to build Growth Street View? How did you do to build a team of 300 from 0 to 300 engineers in 18 months in the Bay Area? And like, it's crazy. I hired like 5 engineers last year, and I thought it was incredibly hard. So I don't know how you did with 300 engineers.
I don't know either. I can talk about this, but
how did you do to manage 500 engineers? How was it to manage 500 engineers at Google? So all those things, I guess I would love to learn from you more. So let's conclude now, though, and let's talk more later. Just for all the other folks in the Zoom conference today, that reinforced me a lot on our mission at Plato. We can learn from great leaders. We have a community of almost 500 leaders, 500 engineering and product leaders now. So we have the co-founder of Box, we have Luc here, obviously, we have the VP engineering of Medium, and we have like 400, almost 500 of them now in the community, and they are spending every single week they are spending time with folks like you to share their knowledge, to try to be helpful and to give back to the community. Something new that we launched 2 weeks ago is what we call tracks. So we have 5,000-6,000 calls right now, one-on-one call that happen, and we have data about what do you need at a specific stage of your career. When you are in 0 to 2 year of experience, and when you are more experienced engineering leader, you have those type of topics that we package for you. And what we try to do is to pick up the best mentors who can help you on specific topics. So for example, this one, if you're an experienced engineering leader, there are going to be 7 sessions about how do you go from manager to a director, how you set audacious goals. So that is something that we're always trying to learn, how you manage team engineer, and how you manage the engineers who are not technically aligned, etc., etc. So we have tracks like this. So we have an offer today where for $99 per month you can have access to all of those tracks. So it's an offer we have today, and in order to access this, you are going to use the promo code named Luc Vincent. And this is like the normal price is $249, and we have $99 only for today. So this is what we launch. Hopefully we have tons of feedback on how do you like it and everything. We send an email to get to so for all of you to know which link you should go and so on. But that's all for today. We have more of these sessions in 2 weeks. The next session is going to be with Tom, who was the CPO of Coursera and who was VP product of Netflix, and now he's a partner in a venture capitalist firm. He has been operating as a product leaders for a decade or even more, and he can tell. And he's been managing all the engineering and product team at Coursera, and he knows a thing or two about how to align all those teams and etc. So hopefully we'll learn as much as today. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone, and we're looking forward to seeing you in Plato, and welcome to the Plato community. So, and thank you again, Heather, Brett, Luc, for today.
Thanks all of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.